Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that great big subscribe button right here, right now. If you want videos about love, life, dating, relationships, friendship, or just to improve your asexual life, this is the channel to be. Yes, subscribe, bell icon, so you never miss an episode. So yes, today's episode we're going to be discussing how to be a happier asexual. So how to improve your life to be more happier, or should I say how to improve yourself. So it's very imperative you understand that happiness comes from within. So have you ever been thinking, oh my God, just when am I going to be happy? When is my life going to get better? When is my problems going to be solved? Just when is happiness going to come my way? Now, I'm sure a lot of us at some point in life have thought that way. I used to think that way. However, it's rather faulty thinking. And the reason for this is because happiness is an inside job. In other words, it comes from us and we have to create our own happiness. No one is obliged to come and create happiness for us in our lives. No one's contracted to make us happy, and no one does have to make us happy. Why do we expect other people to make us happy? Where does this come from? Unfortunately, much like most people are conditioned to believe heterosexuality is the right sexuality to be, which we know it's not. You can be whatever sexuality you are. Um, People believe that everyone should fix their problems for them, that everyone else should be making them happy, that if someone else doesn't make them happy, it means there's a problem with them. And actually, this is very backward thinking. What we should be doing is looking at how to make ourselves happy. And then that usually cascades out into automatically shining happiness from within out to others. Rather than looking for other people to make us happy, we have to make ourselves happier, and that spreads the joy and it spreads the happiness. Because at the end of the day, we're spending 365 days with ourselves. And if we can't make ourselves happy, we're going to live a very miserable life. No one, no one is responsible for your happiness like you are. You are utterly and completely responsible for your own happiness, right? This is quite hard because when we're kids, we obviously rely on other people to make us happy because we're quite we need things naturally and we're quite helpless. We rely on other people for our own needs to be fulfilled. But as an adult, we have to create those conditions for ourselves in order to flourish and grow. So, how can you be happier from the inside as an asexual person? First of all, if you're new to this channel, you don't understand what asexuality is. Asexuality is a sexual orientation that is the lack of sexual attraction. I'm asexual, and this means I don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse. I'm not wired to want sex, to need it, or to like it. I am an asexual, however, who has had sex in the past because I thought I had to as part of a normal relationship. And this is really important. So, once you discover asexuality, you understand that not everyone has to have sex in order to be loved and feel loved, and it's normal for some people to not want, like, or need sex. Then you can grow in self acceptance. So, one of the ways to be happier is by accepting yourself for who you are and by understanding that it's okay if you're an asexual person who doesn't like, want, or need sex. There are some asexuals that do want sex, and they might want that for various reasons. Usually, asexuals who want sex don't really want it in the sense of the sex itself. They desire the connection with the person, um, or to please the other person, or they like it as a fun activity to do. And so it's consensual. But in terms of like an innate need and want, like, oh, I really want to have sex now, that's not usually how an asexual would feel or think in general. Although asexuality is a very big spectrum, so you can get asexuals that are on the much more sexual than the asexual spectrum, but these are not pure asexuals. A pure asexual doesn't get the innate need, desire, or want for sex. It doesn't feel that way to them. They don't think that way. And this is perfectly okay. It's okay whatever sexual orientation you are. It's okay to be grey asexual if you're on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum. But there is definitely a difference between a pure asexual who doesn't experience any sexual attraction and some asexuals on the grey end of the spectrum who do experience it in limited, rare, or specific circumstances. They experience it but not enough to want to act on it. Because those that do experience it in limited, rare, or specific circumstances will more likely actually want it if they've got some sexual attraction going on, right? Whereas a pure asexual doesn't usually innately need it or want it or desire it. Doesn't mean to say they don't do it. And so, don't have sex, right? And so, first of all, you have to understand that there are different types of asexual. So every asexual person is valid. And that means you are as well. And you have to understand you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. And I know if you've grown up and you've had a difficult time, it's probably because you felt misunderstood and like people really were talking a foreign language. I had someone today in comments, well, yesterday now, because we've gone past midnight, say that they felt like a robot or an alien. And I really understand where they're coming from, because for years of my life, I felt like an alien. I felt like an outsider in this world. I didn't understand the way people were because I was so different. And I didn't actually have a life purpose back then, right? And I didn't respond well to being in groups. I didn't like being in groups. I was very shy, very introverted, very socially excluded. I didn't understand how to interact in groups at all. And and my parents, I love my parents to bits, but they're very different from me. So if you're an asexual person who you just can't, your family can't relate to you, you can't relate to them. It's like they're a different generation, maybe they got different ideas to you. Maybe I'm fortunate that my parents do accept my asexuality, but not everyone's as fortunate as I am with that, right? Um, but the main thing is you have to accept it yourself. Like, even if my parents didn't accept me being asexual, it wouldn't change the fact that I adore being asexual. And I would say lean into your asexuality. If you want to be happier, enjoy being asexual. Enjoy the benefits of being asexual. So, what do I mean by this? There are huge benefits, right? Obviously, if you're an asexual that doesn't have sex, and you don't do any sexual activities, there's no chance of pregnancy, there's no chance of sexually transmitted diseases or sexually transmitted infections. Now, you might think, oh, okay, but that's a big deal, right? Some people have AIDS, which can kill them. Other people have other sexually contracted diseases. It can take months or a long time to get rid of them. And obviously, pregnancy is a huge thing. It's like creating a family that you might not even want. I've known since 15 I don't want children, right? And so you have to understand those are some of the benefits. There's huge other benefits, right? Because when we're looking at a person, when we're having a date, or whether we're looking to gain a friendship or something, we're not focused on sexual attraction. So a lot of people who are sexually attracted to people, they do base their friendships and who they date on obviously the sexual attraction, which doesn't mean love, right? A lot of people will have the spark and the chemicals flying everywhere and the excitement and the sexual tension or energy or whatever similar to that, and that isn't the foundation for a loving relationship. It never has been and never will be. And the problem is, a lot of heterosexuals, for example, they get into sexual relationships because it's based on sex and this instinct, this biological instinct they have that kind of takes over them, and it can get addictive for them. I'm not saying asexuals can't have addictions. I'm just saying, right? Because we need to be looking at how to make ourselves happier. So we need to be thinking of the positives, the benefits of being asexual, not the negatives, which some people might tell us, right? We need to be injecting positivity into our life, into our souls, to make ourselves pumped up with happiness and positive vibes. Yeah, this is what we need to do. So, in order to counteract depression, negativity, all these dark feelings, we have to inject ourselves, if you like, with good positive feelings, like good emotions, good things, so good thoughts. Our mind's actually programmed to focus on the negative, right? It's programmed like that. It's like a survival mechanism. And unfortunately, for years, it's been programmed itself to focus on the negative. So it's actually a process we need to train ourselves to focus on the positive. So with sexual attraction in mind, when we come to look at someone for a date or a friendship, we're looking at very different things. We're looking like, hey, do I like this person's personality? Could I get on with them? Do I feel comfortable around them? Like, can I hold a conversation? Can they hold a conversation with me? How am I actually feeling around this person? We look more probably for loyalty and time given to us for conversations and for interactions. Maybe we're more interested in playing. I don't play video games personally, but I know a lot of asexuals who play video games, who have a lot of hobbies and interests because we're not focused on sex. I personally think the asexual community in general has a lot more creative people in there, a lot more people that are doing things. This really beautiful creative energy, I feel, this very actionable energy. I'm a person who likes to do stuff, and I get a very good vibe, especially from the people in my groups, of people doing stuff. It's like people are going to book clubs, people are reading books, people are taking lots of photographs. They're being very active in their life. They're taking their dog for a walk. They're experiencing new types of food or loving the different cakes they have. And I just feel that asexuals are so like kind of, what I mean? They're enjoying life in those ways. They might not feel like they're always enjoying life, but they are actually enjoying other things besides sex, because sex is just not what they're focused on. And true love is not based on all these chemicals flying around, which can actually dissolve with time or lower with time. It's based on like mutual respect, commonalities, shared interests and hobbies. Like, can we actually get along? Because if you think of a long-term, serious, committed relationship, unless you're highly invested in that person and you can actually work together as a team with that person, you're going to have a very rocky ride. And sometimes asexuals can be a lot more logical when it comes to relationships and friendships, a lot more analytical because there isn't that sexual attraction in the way. I tend to think that aromantic asexuals, those that lack romantic attraction as well as sexual attraction, can have even a more analytical and logical brain when it comes to dating, relationships, and friendships, because they're not so tied up in romance. I personally am a romantic asexual, so that is a lot harder for me because I do get sparks flying. I do get kind of like the hormonal stuff going on with kissing, not with sex, not interested in sex. But for me, I do find that really difficult. Um, but I always remember the truth, and the truth is like in order to spend the rest of your life with someone, have a long-term relationship with someone, you've really got to like them a lot. You've really got to get on with them a lot. You've got to be, your personalities have got to complement each other. You've got to be on the same hymn page. You've really got to have the same relationship goals. Even if you've got different goals in life, they've got to complement each other. And so it's very imperative that you find someone compatible. And asexuality, I think, allows you to think more about compatibility than it would do if you're a heterosexual person. I find that when I am talking to heterosexual people, a lot of the guys that I talk to that aren't on my Facebook, I'm connected to a lot of entrepreneurs on Facebook, but the guys I come across in everyday life, the majority of them, they're not really doing much with their life, if I'm honest. They're more likely going to work and going home and watching TV, right? And obviously, like, it's important to do things that do make you feel good. So watching a movie or a TV series, not like it's really, really bad. I think it's important to take time out for you to enjoy your life. And if you like to relax by watching a TV series or by watching a movie, I think that's a good thing for you to do because you need to make yourself happy. But one of the other things that's going to make you happy if you start it is self-development work, it's personal development work, is growth work. Because when we don't grow, we can kind of feel there's something missing in our life. We've got no life purpose. We're just going through the motions, going to work, or maybe you can't work, and then coming home and watching TV and going to bed, and it's the same thing over and over again. and we're not really doing so much with our lives. So although I've said that a lot of asexuals, I think, have got a lot more hobbies and interests, seem very active and stuff, there are obviously some people, and every one of us, who can actually do with self-development and personal development to grow ourselves. It's very important. So if you're not doing some self-development or personal development work, I'd highly encourage you to do that, because we can't be staying the same all the time in our life. If we don't change in some way, there will be stuff that happens to in our life that changes it for us. It's inevitable that that's going to happen a bit anyway, but the more in control of the change, the more happier we'll be. The less in control we feel, the worse our life gets, and the more miserable we feel. So it's very important that you take control of your life and that you do things to grow yourself. I've had an amazing day of education ever since I got I watched a movie to chill out. So I needed to relax, because sometimes my mind goes really like hectic. And there was the Age of Ultron movie. I think I saw it at the cinema, but I don't remember what it was, because it was on a date at the time, actually. And so I watched it, and it was like I've never seen it before. So I watched that till the early hours, like 7:30 this morning, or yesterday morning now. And then when I got up, it was like 3:30. And then I've just no, sorry, it wasn't 3:30. That's when I start my training. It was like 12:30, I think it was. And then anyway, so I did a couple of hours, like I was watching some Blue Talks webinars, and they had different speakers on. And one of the things the guy was talking about actually on there was happiness. And he was I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was really important. And he said that he teaches happiness. That's what he does for a living, basically. And that's what he does nowadays. And he was saying about the fact he's got a bald head, and he wore a wig for years, and he used to get taunted at school, like really taunted over it, teased. And he did actually say that he had two guys that were bigger than him, like, be really nasty to him and like gang up on him and try and fight him, and he actually took them both on and fought them. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. But he admitted that. But he said that the fact they were taunting him really hurt him at the time, and it made him really miserable and upset and in pain. And that later on in his life, he met his wife, and they decided to like live on a boat and go sailing around the world. So they did that for a couple of years, I think he said it was. And he said, but everything teaches us a lesson in life, and what could we learn from that lesson? And I didn't actually understand what he was talking about. And he said the lesson was not to base our own self-worth on the judgment of others. That in actual fact, it didn't matter what those people said about the way he looked, because if he had self-worth and didn't care what they thought about him, then it wouldn't matter what they said. And so the lesson that he said he needed to learn was the fact that you shouldn't rely on other people for your own self-worth, because that's not going to make you happy. In order to be happy, you should only value your own opinions of yourself, and you should be happy with who you are and value your own self as you are. And so have self-worth in that way. So it doesn't matter what people say to you. You are, you realize that you're a beautiful being in and of your own right, and other people's opinions really don't matter. And so I do encourage you to try to stop caring what others think. I know it's not easy. I do this quite a lot. I do it a lot more than I ever used to. And I'm getting better and better at it, because I have comments on this channel that you don't see all the comments. Some I just delete because they're really horrible. I'm thinking they don't add any value to this channel, so I will delete them. And other times, if they're not too bad, I might keep them on. But like, if someone says something to me that I think is bad, I will delete it, because I don't see the point in keeping it a lot of the time, because what's the point? It's not adding any value. But at the end of the day, if people say stuff to me, I'm like, well, that's their opinion. It doesn't define who I am, you know? Um, and just because someone has a problem with something about me doesn't mean to say I need to change myself, because I answer to me. I don't answer to them. Like it doesn't matter what they think at the end of the day. I'm not saying they have to watch the channel. I'm not saying they have to be my friend. I'm not saying they have to be in my life. I'm not saying they have to be my boyfriend. I'm not saying they have to even go on a date with me. I'm not saying any of that. Do you know what I mean? So if someone chooses to watch this channel, go on a date with me or whatever, and then they want to criticize me, it's like, why? You're the one who chose to land on my channel and you've taken the time and bothered to write a comment. So clearly you do get affected in some way by what I'm saying, because you wouldn't bother else, would you? And so you just gotta value your own self-worth more than what other people think of you, and value your own opinions. So when this goes back to relying on yourself for your own happiness and to validate yourself, tell yourself that you are beautiful, tell yourself you're lovely, tell yourself you're gorgeous. Right? Because if you don't, what's the alternative? If you say negative self-talk to yourself, what do you think is gonna happen? It's just gonna drive you more and more into depression. It's not gonna help you. I used to have negative self-talk for absolute years. It didn't make my life any better. It just made it worse and worse and worse. And that's because I lacked self-love and I did lack self-worth back then. But I want you to understand within yourself that there are skills you have, there are experiences you've had, and that you have in life that you can offer to others. You could give someone a listening ear to someone, and that could be the most bestest thing you've ever done for someone. So happiness does come from within, but it also helps if we share our happiness with other people, if we listen to other people. So one way we can make ourselves happy is being there and helpful and of service to other people. So we need to be having our own self-worth, self-esteem, happiness come from us, and then we need to spread this out to other people and be there for others and in service to others a proportion of the time, to actually feel good about ourselves by helping others. Helping others actually helps us to feel happier in ourselves. So you've got to remember that you've got to spend time with yourself, doing things you love and enjoy without, answering to anyone, without having to defend yourself, and, doing things because you enjoy them, you love them. So you spend a proportion of your time on yourself, which is healthy, on being with yourself alone, self-dating, which I mentioned in the previous video. This means taking yourself out on an actual date, putting it in the calendar. Today I'm going here at such and such a time. I'm having a date with myself. And you date yourself as if you were dating your most gorgeous person of your dreams. This could be a friend. If you're a person who's not into dating or relationships, like, what would your ideal best friend be like? And think that, oh, I'm having a date with my best friend, right? I'm meeting my best friend. And treat yourself as that best friend. And that's so important. In order to be happier with who you are, you should be your own best friend. You should be looking at yourself and thinking, hey, I like this person. If you don't like the person you are, then you have to do something about it. No one is going to change that for you. You have to change it for you. No one's going to do it for you. Only you have the power to take action. Even if you get help from someone, if you don't take that person's advice and you keep doing the same things, you keep getting the same results. You have to change. And change is difficult for people. I know I have an anxiety condition. Change is hard for people, especially with anxiety. But what's the alternative? That you keep being miserable, upset, and not feeling good about yourself. Sometimes I don't feel great, right? It happens to the best of us. But what we want to be doing is aiming to be as happy as possible the majority of time. No one's perfect. And part of being happy is accepting our imperfections and also accepting when we're not feeling good. But what we don't want to do is stay in that space. We don't want to make it a pattern of depressive behavior and depressive thinking. Because what happens is when we have patterns, it hardwires it into our brain even more. So the more depressive thoughts you have, the more you become depressed. The more you're in groups with people who suffer with depression and you're talking to them, the more they are actually accelerating your depression by keeping you in that mindset. It's good to get support. It's good to have someone who understands you. But if you stay in that space, you're keeping yourself locked into that mindset. So if you are a person who feels down, that you should do the opposite and try to find things that lift you up and bring you joy. like listening to positive affirmations, listening to videos that are good for you, that educate you, that help you grow as a person. What I'm saying is not going to be easy for everyone to take in at the moment, because some people will be going like, I can't do this, right? You can do anything you put your mind to. And if your mind isn't right, I know that because I still struggle with my mind myself. I still constantly ongoing work with my mindset. Mindset is so difficult to actually change. It's really hard because through life we get conditioned to believe different things, think different things, and this wires our brain a certain way, and it's very hard to undo and unravel that wiring. I've managed to do quite a bit of it though in my life. My life is very different to how it used to be years ago. I'm a lot more happier now because I do live on my own. I actually prefer living on my own because I can do what I want when I want. I've only got myself to answer to. I'm responsible for my own bills and stuff. I was in a relationship years ago where it was an abusive relationship, and I couldn't get out of it because I was financially dependent on the guy. I say I couldn't get out of it, but eventually I did leave living with them. So unfortunately, I was in that kind of like codependent state years ago, which I'm not in anymore, that I relied on the guy emotionally as well as money wise. And so, and I kind of, I left home and went straight to live with a boyfriend. And so all I'd ever known is living with people. I'd never lived on my own before. I was so scared about doing that. But eventually I did do it, right? And so eventually when the pain is so bad, you do things. But it's better if you can wait. It's better if you don't wait, sorry, for that, and you actually make change happen for you rather than it happening to you. So we need to be looking for happiness within ourselves. And I do actually recommend living on your own for a while. I think it's a very good thing to do. It can be, like I said, very scary, but it's very good to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to pay for things yourself, to be able to make decisions for yourself and be independent. Because when you're independent, you're much less likely to be reliant on other people who can let you down, who can make you feel bad because of the way they behave towards you. But what we have to remember is it's not just about someone's behavior, it's how we react and respond to that person's behavior. So if a person isn't treating us well, then we have to give them a chance to put things right by having open and honest discussion with them. If we can't do that, or they're not changing for the better to treat us well, we have to leave that situation. So in order to be happier in life, you do have to leave situations that are no good for you. This means leaving a person who is abusive, who isn't valuing your worth, who isn't making you feel good, who isn't appreciating you, who doesn't even maybe want you in your life, doesn't want you in their life. And who, they just don't need you or value you as much as they should. And we have to let these people go, because if you don't let this person go, they'll use you as a doormat. They'll make you feel less than you are, and they won't make you happy. You'll just feel anxious all the time. You'll feel like you're people pleasing them all the time. This is no good. Do not people please. One way to be happier is to stop people pleasing and to say no. So if someone makes a request of you to do something, but you're not comfortable in doing it, you need to say no. If someone asks you to do a project for them, or can you help out with a project, and you don't have the time or you don't want to do it, it's not going to make you feel good, it's not going to help you in any way, and helping them with this would not make you feel good, then you need to say no, right? You need to set a boundary and say no with people. And it's okay to take time out for you, right? My best friend, they're taking time out for themselves this weekend. They let me know because I do have an anxiety condition. So they know that if I don't know what's going on with them, I get anxious because we're very close. I've got two really close best friends. And we're that close that we can get affected by each other. So we've got to watch our own mental health as well as, like being there for each other. And so because my best friends like they need time out, I'm like, that's fine, because they've told me up front, I'm cool about it. I know what's going to happen. I'm prepared for it now, because most weekends they have time out for themselves anyway. When they first told me that, it felt difficult for me because I'm so used to being able to talk to them every single day. I'm so used to like us conversing. So it did take me a while to get used to it. It was a little bit difficult at first, but now I've got used to it, and now I just spend my time doing stuff for me. And so what I would say is, in order to make yourself happier, if your friendships change in some ways, it doesn't mean to say they're changing for a bad way. Some friendships can change in not a good way, and if it's not healthy, you might have to let the person go. Um, and other friendships can just change in ways that need to change for it to be healthy for the person. Like if my best friend needs time out for themselves, it's imperative in order to make themselves happy, which I've just said is the most important thing. You make yourself happy. They need to do that for themselves because they are getting stressed and it's not feeling good to them. I don't want them to be stressed. I don't want them to be, in that state in a bad frame of mind because I care about them. I love them as my friend and not romantic wise, and I care about them. So that is what's best for them. When they first took time out, it wasn't like I didn't want that for them. It's just that I found it difficult to adjust because I was used to having that time with them. But now I've got used to being more on my own at weekends. I've got used to like doing stuff at weekends. I plow myself into all my projects. Like I am so happy with myself because like I said, I think I went to sleep at 7:30. I think it was 12:30 I woke up, or was it 1:30? It might have been 1:30. But basically, I was watching webinars, personal professional development stuff, till for a couple of hours, nearly to 3:30. And then, well, it was 3 o'clock actually. That's right, 3 o'clock. And because then I had another training from 3:30, and that went up till gone midnight. I've still got more training videos to watch for it. I got there was nearly a 2.5 hour webinar to watch, and there's been training videos afterwards on a page. And I've been taking notes and stuff. So I've been literally like immersed in education for hours. First with like the 1.5 hours webinars, and then all this like, like 2.5 hours and the training videos afterwards. I spent about 9 hours or more today in education, maybe 10 and a half or something. But yeah, I've done a lot of education and I feel so good because I've learnt new stuff. I've been learning about AI, and that's, so in order to make yourself happier, learn about what you're passionate about, learn new things, learn new ways of doing things, new ways of being. And if your dynamics with your friendship changes, if it's a healthy friendship, then adjust and do things that make yourself happy. Like, take yourself away for a holiday if you want, or go out for a walk, or go to the movies, or take yourself on a picnic, or go and do stuff for you, right? Like, I actually think it's more healthier for me to be sometimes watching movies to help me relax so that I'm able to be more productive. I've noticed that when I have watched a movie, then it's just like I've had a really productive day because I've had the time to chill out. Because as a person who has an anxiety condition, my mind tends to race with thoughts all the time. And it's very difficult to calm it down. But actually watching movies, especially when there's kind of like a happy ending, I really like happy ending movies. Movies that kick butt, superhero movies and stuff like that. It just makes me happier. So whatever makes you happy, do more of that thing. But watch what you put in your mind, right? If you're putting things like the news in your mind that's based on rape and murder and death and destruction, that's not going to make you happy. What we listen to, what we watch, what we consume can be like eating food and all this type of thing. What we consume in terms of basically visual, taste buds, listening, all these things, all the senses, what we consume affects us. It affects our physiology, it affects our emotions, it affects us physically. And so if you think of our bodies like a computer, and if you put stuff in it that's kind of like faulty and creating false returns, if you know what I mean. It'll be like, oh, you'll see these errors, right? If we put stuff into our brains and into our visualizations that are unhealthy, that are bad, that are death, destruction, murder, rape, violence, this gets into our psyche and it will make us depressed and anxious and nervous and fearful. So I don't watch the news. I stopped watching the news years ago on purpose. And people are like, oh, I have to watch news. News is an addiction. You don't have to watch the news. You don't have to watch it. You choose to watch that. If you're an asexual that doesn't like sex and you watch movies with sex in it, if that affects you, don't watch it. You have a choice. And some are like, oh, but I can't not. Why can't you not watch it? It's an addiction. You can do anything you like. You can quit. People quit smoking. People quit alcohol. I quit eating chips when I was 15 years old. I quit alcohol when I was 19. Right. And I just quit it like that. I've never gone and taken that again, right? Because it's just something I don't do. If I'm going to do something and cut it off completely, I cut it off completely usually. If it's like something I was like like into eating chips is my favorite one of my favorite foods, but I'm like, no, it's not going to be good for your health to do that, right? Um and so, like you might have noticed I do a lot of food videos. I actually hate cooking, but a lot of my food videos contain a protein, which is usually a fish or a chicken, sometimes turkey lately, and vegetables and like potatoes, which means you got your carbohydrates, say you got proteins, you got vegetables, and these are all healthy foods. Some people could argue that carbs aren't great all the time, but actually you do need carbs for energy. And a lot of people recommend well-balanced diets that do have carbs, protein, and vegetables in them as well. But when I eat nutritious food like that, I feel much better emotionally. So I would urge you to think about the food you eat and to, when you consume them, see how your emotions are. Keep a mood diary is something that's very good. So that, when you're feeling down, what did you do when you were feeling down? When you were feeling depressed, what were you watching? What were you thinking? What were you saying, even if you're talking to yourself? What were you eating or not eating? What were you drinking or not drinking? Right? If we don't hydrate ourselves, I have water here, and we can start to get headache and start to feel dizzy and stuff. Right? So water is very important. It flushes toxins out in your body as well. Urine should be perfectly clear, by the way. If you've got coloured urine, you're not drinking enough water. It should be clear, like water, not yellow, in case you didn't know that. And so yeah, so it's very important that you have nutritious, delicious food. I have proper meals a lot of the time because I can't have sandwiches and stuff because I'm allergic to wheat. And obviously, if you've got food allergies, don't eat the food you're allergic to. Don't drink the drinks you drink. Don't drink the drinks you've got allergies with. So I can't have yeast. I can't have anything fermented. Right? So I couldn't have alcohol anyway. I'm allergic to sugar. I couldn't have alcohol if I wanted to. Right? But some people that go around eating and drinking stuff that they purposely know is going to make them poorly. And, then it's not going to make them happy. So your happiness is your responsibility, no one else's. Your happiness needs to come from within. And you need to take steps every single day to make yourself happy. I have usually, well, I have had and I have got it still, what I call a happy list. And what you want to be doing is writing a list out of 10 things that make you happy. And every day you should aim for 3 of those things, minimum of 1, but ideally you want to be doing 3 out of your 10 things every single day. It can be more than 10 things on your list, but you need to pick some things from the list every day and be doing them to make yourself as happy as possible. And happiness is like a muscle you need to exercise, right? So if you go to the gym, I don't go to the gym, but if you go to the gym, you need to keep it up in order to keep the physique that you've got, in order to keep the physical fitness you've got, right? But you can also exercise mentally. And one of the exercises you need to do mentally is creating happiness within yourself by doing things on your happy list. So when this video is over, I want you to purposely go and create a list of 10 things. This could be in the front of your diary, on the front of your journal, and every day read that list of things and pick 3 things on it to do every day. Because happiness is like exercise. You need to do it regularly in order to keep getting happiness. It's not something that actually is inborn in us. Oh, like we're not wired to make ourselves happy, unfortunately. So it means we have to create that happiness on purpose. Has to be intentional. So happiness needs to be an intentional act every day, and it needs to be towards yourself first and foremost, because only when you fill your own cup up and are happy can you spread happiness and joy to others, right? And you need to be responsible completely for your own happiness. It's hard if you've never been told that before, right? Obviously, it's good to get some help, see a therapist, a psychologist, a counselor. All these type of people can help you if you need help with your mental health. Just like you might go to a personal fitness trainer if you want to work out at a gym, therapists are there for that type of reason for your mental health. There's nothing wrong with getting help. In fact, it's very important. It's very important that if you have traumas or past childhood issues, that you do get help to try and sort those things out so that you can move forward in your life and they don't hold you back so you can be happier. So it's imperative you get help. But at the end of the day, always remember you're completely responsible for your own happiness. So this means you're responsible for picking your therapist and for picking one that works for you. Not all therapists are good. Not all therapists will make you feel better. And obviously it might take you some time to find a good one. If you've got a therapist that isn't good for you, that can make you feel worse, right? Because you're working so closely with them, you have to trust them, and it's kind of intimate setting, even if you're video calling with them, because you're telling them your secrets and your dark phases, right? So you have to try and find someone who you can trust, who you think intuitively, instinctively is actually good for you, right? And it might take some time to find this person. But therapy is good because it's saying, hey, look, I have problems and difficulties. I now need to solve them. It's better than the person who sat there knowing they have problems or difficulties or denying them, not wanting to do anything about it. But obviously, you still need to be responsible for your own happiness. You can't be a person that has therapy all their life but never ever believes that you are responsible for your own happiness, and you think the therapist is completely responsible for your happiness, and that's it. And if they don't make you happy and change you to be happy, then all is lost and you're a really bad person, you hate yourself and stuff like that. It's not the way to be. Do not bank your happiness on someone else. A therapist has got a job to do. They're not there to make you happy per se. They're there to give you tools and techniques to make yourself happier, to help you to be happier, to help you unravel the difficulties you've had in your life and the trials and tribulations and the hard times, and to actually like work things out so that you can have happiness within yourself, right? There are some people that believe that therapists are totally responsible for their happiness, and they think that if they get into a relationship, the other person's responsible ultimately for all their happiness, and their parents and their teachers and everyone else is responsible for their happiness, and they don't look within, right? Of course it's important to have healthy relationships. It's important that people treat you well, and if you're not getting treated well by your family, your friends, teachers and stuff like this, then obviously something needs to be done about it, right? And you could just be in a situation in your life where you've got such low self-worth that actually you'll cling on to anyone as a friend. And these people that you're actually friends with aren't really your friends. I've known people who, I can't divulge who they are, but I've known people who had so-called friends, and the friends were just taking their money. Their friends were just expecting them to buy them drinks, pay for their meals, take their money, because they weren't real friends, they were using them. And they had such low self-worth and low self-esteem, they let themselves be used. But that didn't make them happy, obviously, because they're thinking, "Oh, well, this person's only coming to see me when they want something, when they want money, or they're only socializing with me when they want something," you know? And so this is no good either. So, sometimes you have to change your friends. You have to stop hanging out with people who are no good for you, because you can't be happy with people who are no good for you, people who don't value you, people who are using you. I don't give money to people usually ever. Very rare instances I ever give money. And it would not be with someone I do not know. And usually I think it's like twice in my life. That's it. In my whole life, right? And so, that's just the way I am. I don't do it, right? I'm not here to give money out to people. I have to look after myself, and you have to understand that. You have to look after number one first, right? Some people come across me and they think, "Oh, she's really rich." It's not the case at all. I'm rich in life because I do have my own place, but not paid. I'm not paid for it. It's not mortgaged. It's rented. Right? I do have a rich life in the sense that I do budget well so that I can go out and enjoy myself, so I can go to the cinema and I can go clubbing sometimes and I can go and do things that I enjoy because I budget, right? I make sure that all my bills are worked out. I make sure that I'm paying and investing in myself, right? I spend money on myself in terms of investment. So some of the I have disability benefits nowadays. I told you that since last year. I had to fight for that because I got 2 unseen disabilities. One is fibromyalgia and one is generalized anxiety disorder, in case you didn't know. And so, I fought for that for ages because they're unseen, so it's obviously a lot harder to get them. But then I used some of that money, well, a lot of it, to invest in trainings and education so that I'm improving myself, right? I'll have to, like, I personally will probably end up seeing someone from a therapist background in the future because I have a few things that I still want to personally address that I don't think I can work out completely on my own. So, like, what I was saying is, like, having a therapist is a very good thing. I've actually come across someone that's a therapist, mentor, and coach. So I'm probably going to contact them after my holiday to Disney and Paris and just see if there's anything they can do to help me. I often find with therapists, because I know quite a lot now, that's not to brag, that's just because I've done a lot of work on myself, that I'm quite more advanced and I've already got lots of tools that help me, and I've already helped myself a lot, so I'm at quite a different stage to most people. So, like, basic counseling usually doesn't really wash with me anymore because I'm more advanced than that in the way can wire my brain and stuff. Like, I try to rewire my brain a lot, which is much more advanced than normal counseling, which is listening services. But counseling's still beneficial as well, so I can't, like, I do, like, one therapist years ago said I don't need any more therapy because I've got all the answers myself. So that's why I'm not, like, just rushing back to go to that, and I don't know if I actually do fully need it. But, I think because there's some things I'm still working through and some things I haven't completely sorted out, that maybe a different perspective is maybe good. I don't know. So sometimes, it's good to talk to a coach, a therapist, a mentor. You don't have to be an actual therapist. You can get a life coach. And even the top life coaches have life coaches. So in case you didn't know that, most people who are coaches for a living, they coach for a living, they have their own coaches. Because in order to serve and help their clients best, they usually need someone to keep them in check, to coach them, to bring the best out of themselves so that they can be the best for their clients. Whenever I'm educating myself, I'm always thinking, oh, like, what books can I write in the future that will help people? What information can I give on my channels that will help people from what I've learned? So although I learn a lot of stuff, I impart, I should say, a lot of knowledge on my channels to help others. So I'm not just learning it for me, but I'm first and foremost, I actually feel better when I educate myself. I feel better that I'm growing. I feel better that I'm understanding the world more. Feel better that I'm understanding relationships more. Feel better that I'm growing myself as a person. Because if we don't grow as a person, we stagnate and die inside. And that's a horrible life. We feel like we've got no life purpose, nothing to offer the world, no skills, no experience. Why would anyone want to bother with us? That's the mindset I used to have years ago. But then when I started realizing, my God, you've had jobs where you've learned how to, like, sell, for example. I used to be in retail sales for years, management background, actually. So I am good at selling physical products. I'm damn good at it. I'm still good at it to this day. It's not something I, particularly want to go back and do. I like selling physical products online though. I love that. I get a buzz out of it. I get a buzz out of selling to customers more than the actual more than actually the money, if you know what I mean. Because I just like making customers happy. When someone buys, like, I sell stuff on Vinted or Facebook Marketplace, for quick cash, like stuff that I've pre-loved, and someone buys something from me and it's going to good home, I'm like, I'm so happy that I made them happy. That's more important to me. And I do, like, I do get a little buzz out of the money as well, but really it's not really the money. It's more like the buzz of actually like making someone happy. And I just love that. Um I'm motivated by responsibility and achievement. So I think it's very good to be self-aware, to understand what motivates you in life so that you can do more of that. I actually did a test years ago in work. It was in a training session. And it's like, what motivates you in your life the most? And mine came out a sense of responsibility first, sense of achievement second, money third. So I'm not driven by money first and foremost. That's just like an after thing. If I was driven by money, I probably would be a lot more actually rich by now in monetary terms, but I can't, just do something for money. It just I can't do it. It just bores me. I'm just not interested. I just don't feel good. I can't do things that are not interesting to me. I just can't do it. I just like I have to be interested. Even when I was selling, I had to be interested in products I was selling. I had to be in the mindset that I really wanted to work for the company. I really want to promote that product. I can't just do something for the sake of doing it. It's not who I am. And I'm proud of that, and I think it's very important to have your own ideology, your own methodology, and your own ideas in life. And I think it's important that you cherish them, because if you accept your own thoughts and beliefs and you value them and you appreciate them, and you're not just doing something because someone tells you to do something, that's going to make you feel a lot better and happier in yourself, because you're going to, like, be up leveling your own self-worth. You're going to be saying, hey, this is what I stand for. One of the ways you can make yourself happy as well is by doing things in spite of what other people think, which is really kind of what I've already touched on. But I have this embrace your quirky philosophy, but which is all about doing what you want to do, regardless of what anyone else says, thinks, or does. So to just be you, be authentic, do what you want in your life, and don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about what other people think or say or do in response. You just carry on being you. And I'm really authentic. Like, you see me on this YouTube channel, you see me off it, I'm exactly the same person. Most people change in different environments. But you see me on here, you see me in person, I'm the same person. I don't actually change. So, even the guy I dated on Sunday, even he said, like, you're exactly the same as well. I'm exactly the same. I don't change, which is very rare. Most people change depending on what different social circles they're in, depending on who they're talking to, depending on where they are. I'm just the same. I'm just me, because I like being me, because I like being authentic. Being authentic is actually a lot safer in life. When you're pretending to be someone you're not, you'll come unraveled, you'll come unstuck, you'll have huge anxiety, huge fears. But when you're actually your true authentic self, no one can take that away from you. It doesn't matter what people say, you are being you, and that's a great thing. So you have to understand that your difference is your beauty. If you're asexual, you're like 1% of the population, maybe more, right? But you are unique and special being, and you see the world differently, and that is actually beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So although it might feel difficult at times, like you are an alien because you can't relate to the general population at large, right? It's actually a good thing you're different, because it makes you more stand out and be outstanding. Why would you want to actually be a robot like everyone else? And it makes you have a different thinking. It makes you break the mold of conventions and conditioning. So it's actually a really good thing. Um, so that's another benefit of being asexual, And some asexuals, we're not into having children. And we're not into conventional relationships. And that's good to have a variety in life. Who wants the same thing over and over again? Right? It means we are able to, like I said, break free of conditioning, because conditioning is basically, like, people, when we're born, like, we're born to believe that heterosexuality is the sexuality to be. We're born to believe that, that you basically grow up a certain way, you behave a certain way, you be a certain way, and then basically you go to school, you go to college, maybe uni, you find someone to settle down with, you have sex, get married, have kids, live in a certain type of home, have to save a mortgage, spend years of life working, eventually retire, and then you die. And it's like, yeah, this is like the conventional, traditional way. Right, and then we realise as asexuals, right, that we don't usually fit into that traditional box, a lot of us. Some maybe do more than others, but a lot of us don't necessarily fit all that criteria or any of it, right? So we know that there's a different way of being. We know that because we are that way. And so we can see the world in a completely different way to what most people can see. And it can make us feel like an outsider at times if we allow it to. But if we just think there are other asexuals like us, that's why it's important to have channels like this, where you know that there's a lot of other people who are asexual who are watching this, right? Or people that are just different. You might not even be asexual and watching this, but you might think that you're different, and you might resonate with this channel because of the difference. You might just want to have someone explain to you how to be happier, even if you're not asexual, right? But how to be happier is to be unique, because no one's the same. Although asexuals are 1% of the population, which is a lot rarer, there's nothing the same about every single person. Every single person is uniquely made up, unique DNA. Every person's different. So, whatever sexuality you are, your difference is your beauty, your nuances are your beauty, your quirks are your beauty. Everybody's body is different, everyone's face is different, everyone's physique is different, everyone's mentality is different, everyone's beliefs are different. No one's identical unless you start to clone yourself. And even clones eventually have diversions and things that go differently and offshoots and stuff, right? Nothing is identical. So, you need to lean into your uniqueness. And instead of looking at the fact that you feel left out, lonely, and lost because you're not the same as everyone else, realize that no one is the same as anyone else, but just people are molded and shaped and conditioned. And who wants to be controlled like that? It's control, right? In case you haven't realized, the world is very controlling. The media is very manipulative. The news is to drive fear and instill programs in your mind. Drama on TV, soap operas are designed to hook you in certain ways emotionally. It's all control and conditioning, right? And we can choose what we want to be controlled and conditioned by and what we want to think and believe. We don't have to go with what everyone else does. In fact, when you stop living that type of conditioned and controlled life as much as possible and you break free, it's going to feel weird because you're like, oh my God, people just don't relate to me anymore. But there's going to be other people that you do relate to. There's going to be people that you'll feel closer to because you're different, right? And I encourage you, if you are asexual, to go in and join asexual groups, become part of channel communities like this one. Find blogs. I've got asexualise.com blog, find asexuals, find your own type of people. If you're not asexual, maybe you are a lesbian, go and find groups with lesbians in it. Go and find lesbian dating sites, right? If you are like a homosexual person, maybe you're a gay guy, go and find like-minded people as well. And it's good to have people who are friends with you who are not the same as you as well, if they accept you for who you are. But if they don't, and it makes you miserable, then you'll have to cut ties with those people eventually. They have to come around eventually, or you cut ties with them eventually, right? But you shouldn't accept abuse or bad treatment, right? I do have a heterosexual best female friend. Well, she's in Turkey now, so we don't usually speak very often, but I did actually get a video call with her the other day, and it was really, really nice to. But I know that sometimes she, particularly in the beginning, when I told her about me being asexual, then I didn't find that out till 2014, and I was friends with her since 2012. So, she was a bit uncomfortable with it. And we were having a chat, which was really interesting. And she said, oh, the reason it's difficult is because, like, people are constantly ramming down our throats these days about the fact of, like, like trans people, gay people, and all this type of thing, and they're ramming it down our throats. And I said to her, I listened to her. I said, I understand what you're saying, but asexuals have had to deal with that for years. On our from our point of view, we've had to deal with the fact that sex has been shoved down our throats for years, in the media, with lingerie, Viagra. I don't know if I listed all this stuff, but I said, in the, it's we've had to have sex shoved down our throat for years, and sexual imagery and products and stuff. So we've had to put up with that for years, and now obviously we are having our own voice, which is important. So I know my dad's mentioned stuff like that to me before. My dad's heterosexual, by the way. He's like, oh, like, because obviously my parents are very much older generation, and they're like, oh, like, oh, but we get fed up of it being shoved down our throats. And I'm like, do you know what I mean? We've had to, as asexual people, some people who don't experience sexual attraction, on the main not interested in sex, have to have sex shoved down our throats for years. All the advertising on television, the sex stuff in the news, which is usually to do with rape stuff, which is horrible. Like soap operas with their boobs hanging out, and who can get off with who, and who's having sex with whom, and who's having affairs, Viagra, lingerie, like even like perfume adverts are highly sexual usually, like ice cream adverts are sexual. Everything's usually got sexual connotations in. Most movies have got sex scenes in them, unless you watch my no sex movie reviews, then you'll know there's quite a few that are certificate 12 PG that don't have sex in them. But on the main, there's a lot of movies that have sex in them. Books have sex in them. Everything's geared towards sex in the main. And so we have had sex shoved down our throats for absolutely ages, since the moment we were born, basically, in terms of conditioning. We've been conditioned to think everyone wants sex, and it's healthy to have sex. If you're not having sex, something's wrong with you. Something's dysfunctional. You've got a disease or an illness or a sickness. It's like a load of rubbish. You've been conditioned from birth to believe that's normal for everyone to want sex and like sex and need it. The reality is not everyone does. And people need to wake up to that, right? And if people feel like, oh, asexuality, trans rights, and homosexuality or whatever has been shoved down their throats, think about how we feel as asexual, and obviously the LGBT community at large. Just think how we feel when we get sex shoved down our throats all the time. Obviously, LGBT people, lesbian, gay, bisexual people are still sexual, you know, unless they're asexual and bi romantic or something as well, but actual gays, lesbians, and bisexuals are sexually attracted to people by definition, right? So they're still sexual beings. But and they, a lot of them do like sex, and they do enjoy it, and they do want it, and some of them rave over it. When I saw a pride parade, I didn't see, well, I didn't actually go specific. Was a speaker at the UK Asexuality conference in 2018. It happened to be the same weekend as the pride parade, and they were overtly sexual there. I mean, it made me really uncomfortable. So I was in a restaurant eating, and they were in there, and one woman got on the table and was literally taking her top off and had no bra on. To me, that's disgusting. And if anyone who was heterosexual did that, they'd probably get done for flashing, right? So I don't believe it's right for anyone to do that personally, because I don't want to see that when I'm eating. It's like invading my space and stuff, because that is like showing nudity in people's bodies I don't need to see. And I don't think that's right, because like some people, like, who, for example, have had sexual abuse and stuff, might find that really triggering as well. Because it's like unwanted sexual visual stuff. But obviously, going back to like advertising and stuff, a lot of that's unwanted, but we can switch the TV off usually. If we're in the cinema, we can look down at the floor or look the other way and stuff, and it's not being like we chose to go to the cinema, or we chose to switch the movie on in the first place, or chose to watch the video series. So there's more of a choice. But when you're in a restaurant and don't expect that, it's not good. But my whole point is that, as asexuals, and the world at large, we are conditioned to believe in certain things. But when you understand asexuality, when you've discovered it and you realize that there are thousands of people globally who do feel the same, like they don't have to have sex in a relationship, they don't like have this need, urge, or want for sex, and that you're okay and you're not broken, it's fine. You feel relieved. And so asexuals have had to live for years growing up as kids believing there's something wrong because everyone's talking about sex and everyone's talking about who gets off with who and who like makes out with who and who fingers who and who has sex with who and all this sexual stuff. And so I don't feel sorry for the people who are saying, oh well, you're shoving it down our throats. I'm thinking asexuals have had sex shoved down their throats since birth, basically. It's still at large, it's still these days sex is like used to sell loads of stuff. This is what's talked about in my asexual perspectives book, by the way. Someone says that sex is used to sell everything, even bars of soap. You know what I mean? And so, they're right. And so I think it's about time that asexuals had their own voice, that we were heard, you know, and that we speak out about who we are. And one of the ways to be happy with their asexuality is to be loud and proud about who you are. If people don't like it, they don't like it. That's their problem. It's not your problem. And that's what I wanted you to take away from this video as well, is that someone else's like perception of you is not the same as your perception. If someone's got a problem with your asexuality, that's their problem. It's not your problem. You don't have to defend yourself in terms of like you don't have to like keep saying to them the same thing, and then if they're not listening to you, like cower down. You can just you can actually stick up for yourself and just say, like, I'm asexual. And the main thing is that it's non-negotiable. You don't have to negotiate your asexuality. You don't have to negotiate your sexuality. If someone doesn't accept you for who they are, and maybe they do think, oh, something happened to you in your life, blah, 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 that's because they can't accept something that's different to them. It's because they're uncomfortable with it, right? If it's a heterosexual person and it's people talking about sex, a lot of the time that won't bother them, will it? But some heterosexuals do get bothered by people talking about sex a lot. But what I'm saying is like, everyone's different and it's okay to be you, and your asexuality is not up for negotiation. Do we negotiate heterosexuals and say, hey, you sure you're asexual? You sure you're heterosexual and not asexual? Are you sure you're heterosexual, not homosexual? Like, but sometimes I do say that back to them. Like, if I've got a heterosexual person, they're saying, oh, so what made you asexual? I had that actually after speed dating the other week. Like, what made you asexual? Like, why? What's the excuses? What's the reasons for it? And I said, I am just asexual. I was born this way, didn't realize it. I'm not wired to want, need, or like sex. There's no reason for it. I just am asexual, right? And then I said to him, so what made you heterosexual? Why aren't you asexual or bisexual or homosexual? What made you heterosexual? And people aren't used to that. They think it's okay to question minorities, but it's not okay to question the majority. Just because we're not the majority doesn't mean to say we're wrong. Just because we're not the majority doesn't mean to say there's anything wrong with us. It just means we're different and we're not the majority. And a lot of people that are living like the majority live, are they really living their authentic life, or are they just following the conditions that's been set for them? And they're like robots and they're just saying, hey, Captain, yeah, I'm going to listen. I'm going to do as I'm told. People in this life are conditioned to do as they're told, right? If I don't agree with something a doctor said, I won't just agree with it because it's a doctor. If a doctor gives me advice, if I think it's good advice, I'll take it. If I don't think it's good advice, or they haven't given me enough advice, I'll go and seek my own solutions out. If they haven't given me a solution that I want, I'll go and find one of my own. Just because it's a doctor doesn't mean to say it's God. A doctor isn't God. They can help you, but they are a person, a human being. Doctors make mistakes. My own doctor actually gave one of my records when I had a test years ago, when was it? No, it was a urine test, actually, being personal, but everyone has urine tests at some point in their life, don't they? And it went off to the laboratory to be tested, and the results got put on someone else's medical record. And I've even got something on my medical records that I don't even know, because I've got given my medical records last year because I have to ask for them. There's some bloke on my medical records who had a like stroke. And I'm like, and before I was even born, I'm like, so why is this on my medical records? Who is this guy who's had a stroke and it's a year before I was even born? Like, is this a past life me or something that I don't know about, because I don't know who it is? They still haven't properly answered that. They said, oh, there's someone in your family that had a stroke or something. I'm like, that's not what it says down there. And there's no one in that year, which is like the 1800s, for God's sake. Like, my family's not born, and none of my family's born then. Oh my God. And it's like even my grandparents when they're alive, as far as I know, that the year for birth is before they were even born, I think. It's like, what's going on? So, like, don't believe everything everyone tells you. Don't think you have to be robotic. Don't think you have to conform to everything someone tells you who is in authority. If you think everyone in authority is automatically right and they have rights over you and everything they say is like a Bible and you should do as you're told, that's part of conditioning. And you have to understand that some conditioning is good for you and some conditioning is bad for you, but you have to make your own choices in life. You don't have to do what someone else tells you to do. If you're someone's telling you to do something is harmful to you, don't do it. If it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. Right? Don't do it just for the sake of you've got to do as you're told. Because comes from childhood, when we have to do what someone tells us to do. But when we're adults, we can make decisions for ourselves. And making decisions for yourself is actually a really good thing, because it gives you power and control over your own life and yourself, and makes you responsible for yourself, which actually puts you in more control of your own life. And when you feel more in control of your own life, you actually feel happier and calmer. It's when you feel chaotic and that things aren't right and that, you should be doing this and you should be doing that because everyone else tells you to do it, because people expect you to do it. But going back to like the beginning of this video, base your own self-worth on yourself, not what other people think about you, not other people's opinions, not other people's judgments. Just be strong. And every time you feel judged by someone, then just think, that they're no better than you, that they don't know everything you know because you've got different life experience, and that you don't have to take on board their judgments, on board their opinions. You don't have to agree with them. You're a person in your own right. You can stay strong and just think, I do not value my worth on what other people think. Say this to yourself repetitively. I do not value my worth on what other people think. I do not value my worth on what other people think. This is really, really important, that you value your worth based on what you think of yourself. And that can be hard. It can be a minefield sometimes, because maybe you're not in a good place about yourself. And like I said, this takes time to change. So you need to look at the things that are positive about yourself. There is positive stuff about everyone, even though it might not seem like it, right? There's always some positives. And, list the positives, excuse me, and work on the things that are more weaknesses in yourself. They don't focus on all the weaknesses, because it'll just make you feel miserable. Like if you got something that maybe you don't like your hair color. I love my hair color, by the way, but maybe it's all natural. I get asked that sometimes. Like, is your hair color natural? Yes, it's completely natural. I've never dyed it in my life, right? And so, yeah, basically, like if you're not happy with your hair color, though, you can either sit there moaning about it, or you can go and actually change it and get a dye for it and things like that, right? There's sometimes you can, if you're out in the sun for a long time, you can squeeze like orange lemon juice, I think it is, on your hair, and that naturally dyes it, I think, from what I know. It like naturally bleaches your hair. So there are natural things. So you don't necessarily have to go and get a dye that's chemical. You could actually find ways online. I'm sure there's lots of video tutorials of how to dye your hair naturally with natural products. So, if you don't like your hairstyle, I love my hairstyle, by the way. If you don't like your hairstyle, then go and change your hairstyle. I didn't like my hairstyle as a kid because I had to have my hair really short. My mum liked short hair and she didn't want me to grow it long, so up to the age of 10, I think I had to kind of have it kept cut short because that's the way she liked it, and it's in like a bob, and I hate that. Like, I much like even now she doesn't she's she always, like, prefers short hair, and she'll comment going, "Oh, your hair's getting really long now." I'm like, "Yeah, I love it. It's great. I love long hair." She doesn't. I do. I love long hair. I love long hair on me. So again, like, being happy is about doing what you want, not what your parents want you to do, not what your peers want you to do, not what your siblings want you to do, not what your relatives want you to do. It's what you want to do. Being happy is all about creating your own life plan, regardless of what your relatives and family think, right? If any family disowns you just because you make your own life choices and do your own thing, then let them go ahead and carry on doing that. You can't live your life by someone else's rules, right? And by the way someone else wants you to be, because family won't be around forever, parents won't be around forever. And if you base your life on what other people want you to live, you'll not be happy. You'll be miserable because you'll be pampering to the whims and the wishes of someone else. You'll be living someone else's life. This is what I really do not like about personally, I don't like about foreign culture. Like, a lot of them, like, I love I like Indian guys and stuff and foreign guys, but a lot of their culture is like, like, to do what their parents say. And it's like, it's so bad because generation after generation, all they're doing is molding each other and conditioning each other. Like, this is a life I want you to live, so you need to live it now because I've given birth to you, which is their choice, by the way, the parents' choice. I've fed you and cooked for you and cleaned for you, which is part of parenting and their choice, right? You could have parented your kids to actually cook and clean for themselves when they're a teenager and stuff, or do one meal each. If you've got 3 kids, do one meal a day each for their parents or something. You don't have to parent your kids so you're doing all the housework all the time, but you chose to do that, right? So whatever you choose to do as parents when your children are kids, you don't do it with, oh, but they owe me now for the rest of their life. They've got to do what I say, to get the education that I want for them, marry who I want them to marry, live this type of life. That's not healthy, right? And they just pass this down from generation to generation. Like, I gave birth to you, I gave you this, so like when you get to a certain age, you pay money for me, and you do this because I've done all this for you, right? And it's like, no, as a parent, there's things you do for your kids that are basic needs and requirements that you do as a parent. You shouldn't be expecting things back for that, because that is normal, healthy parenting, to keep a roof over the person's head, to feed them, to clothe them, to usually put them through education if they haven't got money of their own to do so, right? It's kind of like what you do. And if you didn't want to do that, then why are you even a parent? I mean, if obviously, like, in terms of education, if you think a kid should pay for their own education, then go and do that. Let them pay for their own education. Let them work for it, right? But doing something and saying, "Oh, well, I did all this for which is, as a parent, you should be doing is a child's basic needs, and then saying, "Now you owe me for the rest of your life," is ridiculous. I think it's so harmful and destructive. Um, and that is something I really don't like about those type of cultures. I don't like anything in terms of, like, people expecting things back. Like, I don't think it's good for any cultural religion to have parents or family members that expect their child to live their life. I mean, that's just so bad. It's not healthy. People should be bringing their children up to think for themselves, to be themselves, to go through life with curiosity and awakening their own spirit and feeling loved and supported and cherished, to make their own decisions in life and to move forward how they want to move and to make their own mind up. They shouldn't be told what to do, or like, kids shouldn't be made to feel ashamed that if they don't do what their parents or family members want them to do, that there's something wrong with them, or they're betraying them, or something's bad. It's a load of rubbish. We're all individuals. Parents and children are very different a lot of the time, because we're different generations. We like different things. We grew up in different eras. We grew up with different values, belief systems. I mean, like AI is a big thing now, artificial intelligence, right? My parents like, probably wouldn't have even dreamt of coming across artificial intelligence in their lifetime, but here it is already. It's only gonna get bigger and bigger and more prominent. In the next 10 years, we'll probably all be relying on AI for most things, right? Just like mobile phones came in years ago, and that was new, and internet came in, that was new, right? AI is gonna be, like, in our lives, like, really a lot, to a scary amount, actually, but I'm not gonna go into that, but, it can be used for good, or like anything can be used for not good. But we have to like hope that most people use it for good, and um just be brave, but I'm trying to say that everyone's different and no one should be expecting someone to live how they live, right? I have my two best friends, they're different to me, right? We have similarities in some of our beliefs and our values and stuff, but we also have very different beliefs. Like both of my best friends in the UK, they both are into history. I'm not into history whatsoever. They're both into, well, one of them's more into politics than the other now, but they both have interest in politics. I'm not interested in politics whatsoever. And they're both introverted and I'm an extrovert. It's like, do you know what I mean? But our core values like are the same or similar. Like we're all three of us believe in total honesty, and never lying. And that is crucial to me for friendship. I do not like liars at all. If someone tells a little lie, I'm like, I can't trust you now. I really can't. What if you lie about one thing, you can lie about anything. So we're all very, very honest with each other. We have a great degree of care, genuine care over each other, and appreciation for each other being in each other's lives and stuff like that. So these are like core values that are the same type of values. But I could not, like, I can't, and I wouldn't even wish to make my best friends the same as me, because I know it'd be no good for their mental health. Do you know what I mean? Because 'Cause they're different types of people. You can't make someone be something they're not. Like, I it's difficult for me sometimes because I'm an extrovert in a very introverted world, I feel like now. It's hard for me sometimes. But some of my introverted sometimes my best friends both go out more than I do, even though I'm the extrovert one and they're both introverted, they end up going outdoors more of the house more than me. I can spend days, like, in my place, and one of them walks most days outdoors. They go to remote places, so they're not really seeing anyone, but they still go outdoors, and the other person, they don't go out they don't go out for long periods of time, but they usually see people more than I do outside their home or online more than I do, so they kind of see more people in general than I do. And some of it's family and some of it's like online stuff they do. So in terms of like actually seeing other people, they do that more than me or go out more physically than I do. Whereas I am extrovert and I am like in my home and I'm completely on my own. One of my best friends lives with their mum, so they're never actually on their own, if you know what I mean. They're like got their mum there every night. Um and so I actually, although I'm extrovert, I don't, unless I take myself out on purpose, I don't go out of my home. So I go out when I'm food shopping, but that's only like twice a week usually. And, like, unless I take myself out clubbing like I did the other day, or take myself out to the cinema, then I don't really go out. But it's good for me to go out because I'm extrovert and I get claustrophobic if I stay indoors too much. See, this is how in order to be happier, you have to be your true authentic self and you have to do what's right for you. Because I get claustrophobic if I stay indoors too much because I'm an extrovert, and my introvert friends can feel disorientated and stressed and anxious if they spend too much time out of their home and they want to get back to it. So we're kind of like opposites. I'm like feeling like I feel like claustrophobic after a while. Like say 3 days, I can be in 3 days straight in my home, but after 3 days, I'm like, I really need to go out now because I feel like too claustrophobic indoors. But I actually have a fear of too much space. So I don't like being out in countryside in the middle of nowhere with loads of space. That's not actually comfortable for me. I don't like it. I used to live out in the countryside for years and have that, and it's just not who I am. I like things around me. So I like the fact I live in the city now. I can just walk and there's people all around me. That feels really good. Um, and when I stay indoors, then I can become like claustrophobic indoors because I've been indoors too much. Right, but I do actually like being at home at the same time doing my own thing and learning stuff, you know? I live next to a road now, opposite a road, I should say. So yeah, it's, like different people have different ways of doing things. And what I'm saying is, in order to be happy, you need to live your life your way, right? And you need to do what's right for you. This means you need to, if you're a person that doesn't want marriage, but your family expects it, you don't have to get married. If you're a person whose family expects children and you definitely don't want kids, just be honest and say you don't want kids. I mean, some mothers, I mean, for me, it's absolutely ridiculous. Some mothers and fathers are like, oh, but I want grandkids. It's all about them. It's very selfish. Any grandparents go, oh, but I want kids. For basically, it's for them. That's selfishness. That's not letting you live your own life, right? It's not for them to expect you to bear a child for their happiness so that they can see their grandkids and they've got grandkids. That's just selfishness, right? It should be a case of, oh, if you have grandchildren, fine, that's nice. I'd love to see them. But it's not, you don't have to have them because I don't need to have them. You don't have to have grandkids if you don't want them. My parents were cool about that. I'm very lucky about that as well because my parents have known since I was 15 years old that I never want kids. And they do know that I am the type of person that if I say something, I usually mean it. Even though we're very different, me and my parents do usually know if I say something like that, I mean it. I'm not going to backtrack. Because I'm just like that. What I say, I mean. I don't go around changing my mind. The only time I change my mind is when I've changed it, and not about stuff like that, which is stuff like, for example, I couldn't hug people years ago. I could only hug a boyfriend I was in a relationship with, right? Or my parents to say goodbye. Everyone else I couldn't go and hug. I couldn't hug strangers. I couldn't hug other people. I had a really touch aversion, however you pronounce it. I was touch averse basically. But when I went to a business seminar in 2012, that was my first ever business seminar. Someone called Tony Robbins, who's one of the world's leading life coaches, very big name. He got us to do an audience exercise where we have to stand up from our seats and go around and hug strangers. And I remember hugging this guy who was like big in body mass and big in height, not very attractive at all. And he had like a bald head, but with a bit of flyaway hair over there. And I thought, my God, if I can, because I did hug him, I thought if I can hug him, I can hug anyone basically. And so that was kind of the start of my being able to be physically comfortable around more people. At that point, I still wasn't physically comfortable going around hugging everyone. That's taking my process of like some time to be able, so I can hug strangers now, for example. I'm okay. Like if it's in a meetup group and I have older guys coming to my meetup and I'm like, people want hugs. If I've known them, I'm okay giving an older guy a hug just to say hello, goodbye. If it's a asexual meetup, for example, and he wants that, depending on the person. But like I couldn't have done that years ago because I'm not into older guys and I do feel uncomfortable being physically around older guys dancing and stuff like that. But I have had guys who are like around my birth certificate age or much older than me that I have, okay, like occasionally hugged hello or goodbye to, usually goodbye, not really hello. But yeah, so I can do that now. But I've hugged strangers and stuff. I couldn't do that years ago, right? There was a girl in my old place when I came out down the path. There was like a car that crashed into the pavement, and there was two girls that got out, and like they were in the car together clearing this one guy. I'm like, "Are you all right? Is there anything I can do?" And they're like, "No, we've called," I think they called the police or someone. I said, "Okay." And the girl was shaking, and I just said to her, "Do you want a hug?" And she's like, "Yes, please." And her friend who was there with her came out the car. She didn't offer that, but I did. And it made her feel better, And so I can do stuff like that now, but I didn't used to be able to do that. But that's because I've changed my mind. That's because I've decided to change as a person, not because someone told me to do that. And, like, my family aren't very huggy people anyway, right? And so, if I was being like my parents, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I mentioned the other day I wouldn't be on this channel doing what I'm doing because we're very different people. So, in order to be happy, you have to live your own life by your own rules, your way, do your own thing, and do things that are best for you. Like my best friends, they're introverted, so they're gonna have some time to themselves sometimes when they can't be out like I can. They're gonna need time at home. They're gonna need time to take time out. They're gonna I understand that being around people can drain their energy. I have to understand that. Even obviously, usually they don't get drained of energy when they're around me, as in they like my company, but being socially mixing in general, so going out with me somewhere, what is going to be more draining for them, not because there's anything personally wrong with me, but because just being out is going to be more draining in general for them because they're socializing. And so I have to understand that about introverts and not take it personally. And so you have to do what's right for you. It's right for them to not spend as much time socializing as I do, usually. Although, like I said, sometimes like one or more of them will one of them will probably be more sociable than I will in some ways, but without totally like thinking they're being, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so everyone's different, and you need to make yourself happy by doing what fills your cup up, what makes you feel good, by having supportive friends and people around you. If you've got people in your life years ago, when I was like at school, I had girls that weren't really my friends. I thought they were, but they didn't actually act like true friends. They didn't really care about me. It's very one-sided friendships. They didn't value my worth. And it was me putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into them and not getting that much back. So nowadays, I don't have those type of friendships anymore. They're not true friends. A few years ago, one of the people I knew from school, I had to let go from my life. She's still on Facebook connected to me, but I probably will never see her again, as in one to one, because I was meeting up with her and she was the last person that I could feel didn't appreciate me anymore, didn't value me, and I had to say something in because she just kept making up excuses, saying she was sick, and it happened 3 times. When I only saw her, like, once or twice a year, usually once at Christmas, and it was like, and it was just for a couple of hours, and every time she would just say she was sick, and so in the end, I said something to her. I said, "I do deserve friends that appreciate me and who value me, and I just don't feel that you do basically anymore." And she accepted it. She said, "Yeah, it's me, not you. I'm like this with everyone." And I know she isn't totally like that with everyone because I know one friend she's very close to because I used to go to school with them both. But that's fine. So I just don't see her anymore, and I feel much better for not seeing her because there's no point in seeing someone where you're putting all the time, energy, effort, and work in, and they're not really bothered about seeing you, and the conversation's difficult then as well. So, in order to make yourself happier, you have to make hard decisions to let people go from your life or be less in your life, and you have to do that for your own sanity and for your own happiness and self worth. And in terms of dating relationships, you have to understand that rejection doesn't mean to say you're a bad person or that there's anything wrong with you. It just means to say that that person is not right for you and you're not right for them. Maybe there's been stuff that wasn't good on one or either side, right? But at the end of the day, the crux of the matter is that neither of you are right for each other. So if someone rejects you, don't let that destroy your own happiness. If someone rejects me or it doesn't work out, I just end up plowing myself more into my own activities and my own learning, and it just makes me feel better again. So I would urge you, if you've had something happen like heartbreak, to actually focus on yourself more when that happens. Up your game with focusing on yourself. Like, do more activities that make you feel good, that make you feel relaxed, that make you feel better about yourself. And whatever that is, for me, is like, like watching a movie to chill out. So maybe before I would be messaging this person, right? And I'd be using my time to spend time messaging them or even being on dating sites more and stuff like that. And that can make you feel bad after a while. And obviously, if things didn't turn out the way you wish them to, it can leave kind of a little void where, because you're used to texting them, used to talking to them, or you miss them or something like that. So it's better, instead of like looking at that thinking what you're lacking, like what you lost or what didn't work out, is thinking, oh, how can I now make myself happier? What activities can I do that will bring me a lot more joy and happiness and make me feel fulfilled? And so today, like, well, yesterday now, because I spent absolutely hours immersed in webinars and educating myself, I feel so much better, because I feel like what was missing before from like things that didn't work out, I've now just filled that hole with so much education and so much knowledge and things I've tried out that have worked for me and things that I've solved the problems. And I'm like, wow, I feel like I've had a hole that's now completely filled up. It's like cemented all the hole up in a good way, and I feel like a lot more calm now. I feel calm at the moment in myself, and that's because I've been doing stuff that's making me feel like I'm growing as a person. It's taking me out of the mindset of that person's not there anymore, or I'm not pursuing people anymore, guys. I'm not into women. And so therefore it's like made me feel better about myself. I'm like, and I do need to focus a lot more on my career and education. It's difficult because I have had my kissing need activated again, because obviously I was kissing a lot on my last date. And I thought I was fine, and it didn't bother me that I wasn't kissing anymore. But like over the last 48 hours, I'm like really needing kissing. I'm like, oh my God, I just have to kiss myself. And that's the thing I would tell you to do as well. There's nothing wrong with kissing and hugging yourself. It might seem weird to some people, but if you want to make yourself happier and you have no one to kiss or hug, then kiss and hug yourself. And also get cuddly toys. If the cuddly toys, I cuddle my cuddly toys. Like, this is one I cuddle lots. One of my best friends bought me this with my name on it, Sandra. It's actually my birthday soon. They bought this as a gift for me before. And so I would literally cuddle and I'll go to sleep and I'll be like, mwah. So I find cuddling cuddly toys really helps, and it makes me feel loved. I love it, or I'll stroke him and I'll be like, yeah, baby. And so I'll stroke him. And this, because they say, like, I don't have any pets anymore, which is quite sad, but I can't have pets here anyway. But obviously, my angel died in December last year. And so like pets can be very soothing. They say, for example, with dogs, if you stroke a dog, it can make you feel calm and soothed. Well, I don't have that anymore, but I find that, just stroking a cuddly toy can help me feel calmer and more relaxed. And I love it because it feels cute, cuddly, and fluffy. And so these again are positive emotions, right? So I was talking earlier about we have to basically inject ourselves with positive emotions, positive self-talk, positive things. So in order to counteract negative stuff, which is making us feel unhappy, we have to plow ourselves with happiness, joy. So anything that makes us feel good. So when I go out clubbing, it makes me feel good usually. When I go to cinema, it makes me feel good. When I have nice, nutritious food, it makes me feel good. When I'm educating myself, it makes me feel good. And so the more I do stuff that makes me feel good, the more better and happier I feel. And so you just need to find out what makes you feel happy. There's going to be some things that make you feel happy. Write your happy list out. And so, if you need to get cuddly toys, right? Asexuals can feel lonely sometimes, especially if they can't find someone for a relationship, because some of us would really love a relationship. And, it can feel difficult. It's like some asexuals feel cuddle deprived, like I feel kissing deprived sometimes. And some asexuals feel cuddle deprived because they don't know one to cuddle. But having a cuddly toy to cuddle does actually help. I think it's quite therapeutic. So, and go away on holiday or take yourself on day trips. Like, I am in Disneyland Paris next month. I cannot wait. Friggin' excited for that, or what? And I'm going on my own. And I'm glad that I haven't got any guy involved with me. I'm thinking, don't get involved with the guy before you go away to Disneyland Paris, Sandra, because last time I was at Disneyland Paris, I actually had a Pakistani guy on Twitter that was messaging me years ago when I was there. I remember it. And he was no good for me in the end. I actually found out he's highly sexual, and he said something about me that wasn't good online in the end. And he wasn't being nice to me. And then he's like, oh, I've got a girlfriend now. I'm like, good for you. And I don't want that again. I'd rather just go by myself and not be attached to any guys and not be messaging any guys and just like enjoy myself. Obviously, I'll be doing some streams or well, shorts videos probably most of the time for my channel here. So you'll see my Disneyland Paris adventures. I'm so looking forward to it, and before that's my birthday, and my best friend Sammy is going to be with me. My birthday's on the 24th of April, but they're going to be with me on the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 20. They go out the 26th. So we've got like days of celebrations for my birthday, not just one day, but multiple days. We're going to Bream Theme Park, Paint and Zoo, Bristol Aquarium, and so I've got all that excitement to come. And yeah, so again, that's doing what makes me happy. So it's very important that you get good friends around you, a good support network. I am in I have bought myself a speaker program, which is actually 3 speaker programs. I'm part of Blue Talks now, who run the speaker, well, it's Corey Poirier is the founder of a company called Blue Talks, and I bought the speaker package with him, which is very expensive. What I said earlier, my disability benefits I actually put towards investing in myself and my education in that way. And so with that comes 3 speaking packages, like the main speakerpreneurship, authorpreneurship masterclass, and from that I go into an author group. And in this author group, we actually have other opportunities, and there's networking once a month, and they have an expert, usually a podcaster or a writer, someone involved in publishing or speaking. And so, once a month you're getting high quality training that just is ongoing, and it's just incredible. And I've got a TEDx program and an actual speaking program. So I've got 3 speaking programs in one. I got to be interviewed for Corey's Let's Do Influencing podcast. I talked about asexuality. So that made me so happy. I can't wait for that to come out. I will let you know when it does. And so that's really good for me to be able to talk about asexuality and get it to a really wide audience. I mean, his show is in, should I say, the top 1.5% of podcasts. This means there's going to be thousands of people listening to that show. Thousands of people going to know about asexuality. I can't wait for that. And I'm going to be part of his Blue Talks speaking, actually as being interviewed for Blue Talks, which is one of his other channels. And so that's like a YouTube show. So that's going to be in June. So I'm going to be interviewed for that. And then in August, I'm going to be a co-presenter for Blue Talks. And then in October, I'm going to be speaker at Oxford University for Blue Talks. And I'm writing a chapter for the latest Blue Talks book, which has got to be finished by the end of this month. So I'm doing a lot with them now, and it feels so good to be part of that community. And I just love it because I'm learning a lot, and I feel that the more I educate myself, the better it is, because I'm a real career girl. So always focus on what makes you happy, whether that's being a career person, whether that's being a pet person and you have loads of animals running around you, whether that is being a hobbyist and like plowing yourself into lots of hobbies. Do what makes you happy. It can be simple things that make you happy, though. One of the things that makes me really happy is taking a hot shower. I feel so good when I have hot showers. I just like feel so good. The water on my skin, the water in my hair, and the shampoo's lovely. And I just like chill out in the shower. Usually I relax and I just have a good time. And also it's very good for my pain because I have a pain condition, fibromyalgia, so it decreases my pain usually and helps it not be so bad. And so yeah, I love that. I love being on this show. I love YouTubing. One entrepreneur person I'm connected to, she was like asking questions in her post, like, and like, what would you do, like, if you could do anything? And like basically it's like, what if it was a question that was basically based on, like, if you think about doing something, or if you do something and it just comes naturally to you and flows, and that's what you should be doing more than anything else. And so she was asking me, when I saw like this post, she's like, oh well, what's your answer to the question? But there was more than one question there, but that was one of them. I said, well, for me, I said, writing books that change lives from pain to gain is my life purpose and what makes me happy. And when I write, like, it's a part of my soul, so I have to do it, and it makes me feel so good, and it makes me feel calm and relaxed, and it really decreases my anxiety. But I did admit that I do procrastinate sometimes, and I do go off on tangents and end up learning different things, but a lot of the stuff I learn, I can use for other books or use for my, channels. And I said the other thing is, like, helping asexuals and being on this channel YouTubing, that these both these things flow easily to me. I enjoy them, like, naturally, so I am actually doing what I love. I am doing what I love, you know? I love being on this channel. I remember when I couldn't be on this channel for a while, and it's just, like, so heartbreaking. It's like, I wanna be on it, when they actually deleted 3 of my channels, and 48 hours it took for people who follow me on Twitter to get this channel back, but I had to get the other 2 back as well, to be able to live stream like this on any of them. So, thank God YouTube reinstated. Thank you, YouTube. Lots of love to you. And so, yeah, I really love being on this channel. So always do what makes you happy by doing what you love, what makes you feel good, by cutting out people of your life who are no good for you, who make you feel bad about yourself, making you feel anxious and nervous, or decrease the amount of time you spend with them. Because obviously, if they're family, you might not be able to cut them out completely, although some people do. If they're really, like, violent and aggressive and abusive, then some people have to cut off their own family. I've known people that have had to do that. It's not pleasant for them, but it's a case of their life depends on it, really. And so, you've got that to factor into consideration, and then, make sure you're doing hobbies and interests that light you up, that make you feel good, and just know that you are okay being as you are, and know that it's okay if you don't feel okay sometimes, and it is good to grieve as well. So if you've had any heartbreaks, you know, one of the ways you can be happier is by releasing those negative emotions quickly. I know this might sound weird because you're like, oh, hang on a minute. If I'm crying and I'm grieving, how is that being happy? But the way you be happy or happier in your life is by allowing that grief and those negative emotions to pass through you quicker, so you can get them out and get rid of them. Because when we bottle up negative emotions and when we don't show those and we keep them inside us, this is when it builds up as resentment, frustration, depression, anxiety, and it actually makes us unhappy in the long term. So, in order to make us happier, we need to do the opposite of what society tells us to do, which is repress emotions. And, oh, like, how many times do you see parents going to their child, oh, stop crying, stop it, or like shut up and stuff like this is really bad for children. This is so unhealthy. If a child's crying, it should have a cuddle and say, like, like, what's the problem, basically, like, let's get it out. Let's, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Like, if they've hurt themselves, they've fallen over, should be like caringness and compassion and, like, what would make it better for you? I'm sorry you're hurt. So they feel safe that they can grieve and express emotions and have some sadness and pain in their life without ruining their life, without feeling like they have to hold on to it and it builds up in their body as pain, right? I have fibromyalgia, which actually is brought on by trauma, and the trauma, unfortunately, stays in the body a lot of the time, and it manifests itself in pain later on in life. It's very difficult, especially if you've been through multiple traumas, right? And so we don't want to ignore the fact of what we've been through. We have to try and process it and work through it as best we can. And this means, like, if you've had some sort of heartbreak or pain, it's healthy to actually work through that and to then, release those emotions. So on Sunday, obviously, after the date didn't go well, I did get attached to the guy and I was really, really upset. And even like in the morning when I woke up, like yesterday now, because it's passed through to the next day, I did some more journaling about that situation, because journaling is good. Like, this is my actual journal, so journaling is one way you can be happier, because you just get out all your thoughts and emotions on paper, right? But because I allowed myself to cry a lot that night and through to the next day, I haven't been that upset anymore. I still feel a little bit like, oh, that's you know but I don't really focus on that. Like, I'm busy going out clubbing, I'm busy educating myself and stuff like that. And yeah, I still journaled about it because it's like I had some still thinking and feeling about, like, what went on, and I had to kind of process it. But I realise, obviously it's a blessing in disguise that the person's not right for me, because it's like, if they're not right for me, they're not right for me. They can't make me happy. And I want to be happy in my life. So I want to find the right person. I've always said to you, if you're with the wrong person, the right one cannot come along. So actually, they've done me a favor and allowed me to be free, to be happy and happier with someone else, or happier just being on my own and not having to interact with them anymore. Let them go, because there's no point in wasting each other's time, which actually they did mention. So, it's much better to just let that person go and to be happier. Like, it's, like, staying connected to someone who you've had feelings for, got some attachment for, is actually not a good thing. It's better to let them go and block them if you need to, even if it's not a really bad person or anything, because you can't really move on. If you keep connected to them, there's always like a what if chance you could get back with them. What if someone changed their mind? If you block contact with that person, which I have done, then, then they can't speak to you unless they jump through hoops and hurdles to get to speak to you again, in which case they're not really going to bother doing that unless they really like you and want you back and hopefully have changed. But most people don't change. And even if they do come back, yeah, like I said, a lot of the time, there's nothing different anyway, so there's no point. But if you make it really hard for them to get back in contact with you again, most people, if they're not really interested in you, they'll just leave you alone, unless it's an ego thing and they want you back because they're feeling sorry for themselves. They'll just leave you alone, and that's much better if you cut. It's because it's like, no, you don't have that opportunity with me anymore. You made your decision. I respect that. I'm off, right? And so there's none of that ambiguity. When you have ambiguity, especially like, for example, I have an anxiety condition, ambiguity is no good for anxiety. I'm black and white girl a lot of the time. It's either you're with me, you're not with me. You either express your feelings and mean them, or you don't. You either lie or you're not a liar. You know what I mean? I'm very like, if someone lies, it's like, well, you're a liar now. That's it. Like, oh, but it's a little lie. I don't care whether it's a little lie or a massive. A lie's a lie to me. That's it. I'm not interested. Um, as I can't trust that person. So, in order to be happier, sometimes we just have to literally block off and from people that are no good for us, cut off completely, because then we can live our own life better. There's none of this, like I said, ambiguity. Ambiguity is horrible. The what if is horrible, because I've been in situations where I haven't blocked people in the past years ago, and it's always what if? What if this person rings me again? What if this person turns up in my life again? And some part of you, if you really was attached to them, wants you to do that again, wants them to do that. And if you don't do that, subconsciously, you can actually get upset about it, thinking, oh, well, they never actually did that. Or subconsciously, you can be always thinking, like, when are they going to do it? And it can wreck your life, and it can make you very unhappy. And this video is all about making you happy. So it's better to cut off and value your own worth and say, hey, they're not right for me. I believe if two people are meant to be together, right, they will find a way to be together. End of story. And if the person's not fighting for you and wanting to be with you, then there's no point. You let them go, because they're not the right person for you. They have not chosen you. And, it's highly improbable that person's going to come back years later and be good for you and be the right person for you. It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable. But if it is possible, then they can find ways to do it, right? If they really care and like you that much, they can find a way, right? And if they don't, they don't, you know? So it's not meant to be. So it's much better to actually not hang on to someone that's no good for you and think it might work out next time, because that actually is very unhealthy. It's better to decide, right, this person's no good. We've tried to make it work, doesn't work. Let's both go our separate ways so we can find other people that might be better suited to us. And it's like you've given a chance to that person. It didn't work. Move on. And that is better, because then you can be happier again. Because if you're always trying to make something work or want to hang on to something that is never going to work, it's not good. I do get, I've still got improvements to make, because even with the guy on Sunday, I was kind of trying to convince him still about why, why he should be with me. And it's like, kind of like, why are you doing that, Sandra? You shouldn't have to convince a guy to be with you. It's more to do with the fact of my asexuality. And he's like, oh, well, Like, he obviously clearly wasn't okay with it in the end before he said he was, because he's like, "Oh, my extended family, like, I worry what they think, and I wanna make my parents proud." And it's like, what? So they're not gonna be proud that you're with, someone who's is an asexual author and speaker? Like, and how do you know that your parents aren't asexual? And, like, how do you know there's not family members that aren't asexual and maybe they'll actually really be interested in it and really like it? He's like, "Oh, and friends of friends," and like, caring what other people think. So I was trying to say, "Well, you shouldn't care what other people think, especially if you like me. It should be more important that you like me." But if I'm having to do that and convince him, it's not actually a good thing. So, yes, I still have a bit of a bad habit of doing that. I'm like, "No, you should never have to convince someone to be with you because they're not the right person for you if you have to do that, right? You should never ever do that." But sometimes we do things in the heat of the moment or that isn't good for us. Sometimes we do things that we think, "Damn, afterwards I shouldn't have done that." But I don't regret doing that because I think I showed him a different perspective. And I think, like, that's valid because I think I was explaining that, like, when I saw the film What's Love Got to Do with It, for example, there's a Pakistani main character in there. And in the end, he does get married to someone of his own kind, if you like, and then realizes that it's just a whole complete fake sham because his wife actually loves another Pakistani person, and his best friend, who's British female, he's meant to be with. And so, he realized the truth. And so I don't think it's bad that I said that in the sense to him, I was trying to get him to see a different perspective because obviously in Pakistani culture, Indian culture, they're all conditioned to like, you need to marriage and you need to marry a certain type of person and blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's good for me to open that person's eyes to different ways of being and that it's okay to be asexual and stuff. But obviously, if I'm having to convince someone, that's not a good sign. You should never have to convince someone. You should have someone who's eager and pleased to be with you, who's enthusiastic to see you, who wants to be with you, who you don't have to convince, but who is actually convinced just by the fact that they care about you, they like you, they want to be with you. But obviously, I was upset at the time, and, I think it's good in terms of your own happiness to not have regrets. Like, I don't have regrets because I think if you have regrets, then you feel guilty and bad about yourself, and that doesn't make you happy. So I go in with the attitude that whatever I do, I don't regret what I do. Everything happens for a reason. I either learn a lesson or I have an experience, and I have to move on a lot of the time, but it's okay to do that, right? So I think having the attitude of like no regrets and also everything happens for a reason. And I believe there are no mistakes you can make in life, just lessons you learn from experiences you have. And so therefore it allows me not to feel guilty or bad about myself or what I did. And therefore I can continue to be happy or happier in myself than if I did stuff and just thought, "Oh, I regret doing that. I made a mistake, rah, rah, rah." That's self-critical. Why do I need to do that, right? Sometimes you take risks in life, they don't pay off. I am proud of the fact that I take risks in life. It's really difficult, especially with an anxiety condition, especially when I have some fears. But I'm actually proud that I do that. I actually think it makes me more stronger, more resilient, and tougher and emotionally stronger, even though it hurts at the time. So I would say to you, like, don't feel guilty and bad about things you've done in the past or what's happened because you did the best you could do at the time with the information you had. Like, whatever stage you're at in your life, you do the best you can do at the time. Like, looking back in your life, you might have a different way of being now. You might have new knowledge and think, God, if I was to go back into time and talk to a younger version of myself, I would give myself this life advice, or I would tell this person to do that. But at the time, you didn't think that way. You didn't act that way. You didn't do things that way because you can only do the best you can do at the time with the knowledge you have, the experience you have, and also the situation at hand, right? Sometimes we get into situations that are difficult for us, and we just have to do the best we can do at the time. We have to make a choice one way or the other there and then to do something. And maybe neither of them is the right choice, but you've got to make a choice And even if you don't make a choice or decision, you're still making a choice and decision not to make one. So you still made one. So it's much better to just like accept your action you took, and then it's okay, and that you're still okay. You're an okay person. You're still a lovely person, a beautiful person. You're still special in and of your own right. Just because you did something that didn't work out doesn't mean to say it's bad, or you have to beat yourself up over it. You just have to grieve that if it's a lost situation, grieve it. Um, one of the things that I was watching even on the Blue Talks webinar series that I was watching earlier, they were on about like grieving, and they were on about like when you change yourself to become a different version of yourself, they were on about grieving for the past version of you. And they said that, like, even if you're grieving for a past version of you, it's like grieving for the death of someone. It's a similar type of thing. And I think that's applies to me with romantic dates and stuff. Like, if I get attached to the person, even if I've only got attached to them within like 48 hours or 24 hours or whatever it is, I'm still attached to that person. So by them going from my life, I've had a huge range of emotions. Like, okay, didn't know this person, ended up in a 6-hour video date, got somewhat attached then, thought that things might go really well, was hopeful, had positive thinking, did the date, didn't work out. And so obviously I've got a range of emotions that I've allowed myself. Like, you could argue that I shouldn't have gone on the date, that I should have protected myself, and obviously I got hurt, and if I'd like made the guy wait days or weeks to see me, then maybe I wouldn't have ever had the date, and I wouldn't have got hurt and all this. Like, yeah, I can go in all that type of ways, but that's going to take my energy and time up thinking that way, and I need to move on now, and I have moved on already. And so I don't need to be thinking that way. I don't need to be thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have done that, because I made the choice and decision that I wanted to be brave and try something and take a risk, which obviously was a risk. And so I did get hurt. And I accept complete responsibility to the fact I made that choice and decision. So, like I said about being happy and making yourself happy, is to take responsibility for your decisions and choices and what you do. So I'm not blaming anyone else for me being unhappy. I'm just accepting the fact that I was unhappy at the time. I'm a lot happier now, because I've had time to like get back to my own life, do my own thing, not message them, not be in their life anymore, and just think, well, yeah, everything happens for a reason, for the best. And, I've got my whole career ahead of me, my whole life ahead of me, lots of good things in my life. I'm very intelligent, more intelligent now since the last 24 hours, and lots to learn, lots to do, and it's all good, and life is good, right? And focusing on the positives and the other things, right? So I just think that you have to realize that whatever you did at the time, you did with good intention, and you did it from a place of you made that choice and decision. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. Don't beat yourself up, because I've known even close friends to feel very guilty and to beat themselves up, not physically, mentally, over the fact that they wish they'd done something different, wish they hadn't lived that life, wish they hadn't been like that. But that just wastes your energy in this present time. It's not gonna make you happier in this present day. It's just gonna all that's just gonna waste your time. You've got a new life now. You're not that person anymore. You're not that same version of you. You're not the person you were even yesterday. You've moved on. You're in a different day, right? Different time. So we have to like forgive ourselves, or just accept that we haven't made any mistakes anyway, because there's no mistakes you can make. I honestly don't think there's any mistakes you can make. There's just experiences we have, lessons we learn from, and we build stronger resilience, right? Stronger resilience. And so what I was saying about being attached is like, in order to, it's okay to admit that I was attached to that person. I did get attached quickly. And so I've had to grieve that, because it is a loss. So when you attach to something, it's a loss. I remember I was even attached to my printer years ago. I don't know how long you've been watching my channel for, but I had this printer. It's a printer. It's a plastic object, people, a printer, right? But this printer was an Oki printer, and I had it specially made, cost me a lot of money, right? Industrial printer. And I got attached to the printer because the printer had printed a lot of my books and a lot of things, and we've been through a lot of tough times together. And I get very attached to my books, like the Asexual Guide to Sex book that I've been working on for nearly 4 years now. I am attached to that book because my books end up being like my best friends, and they go through so much. Just imagine all the everything I've been through over the last nearly 4 years. My book has been through it with me, and so I do have some procrastination. I do find it hard to let a book go, and that's really difficult to admit that, but when obviously I put it out into the world, it's good because it can help other people. It can't help other people if I still haven't pushed it to publish yet. I'm still going to publish it. I'm always determined. I always will succeed at doing stuff like that. I won't not do it. And it can help lots of people. And I've got some anxieties around it from the point of view is like I'm thinking about what to put on the cover. And also like I know all the marketing that I've got to do and promotion for it. It's a lot of work as well as finishing all the editing work that I need to do on it. And so, like for me, it's like the book is actually a big part of my life. And I find it hard to let it go. It becomes like a friend to me. And it becomes like once I let it go, it is a bit like a parent with a child having to let their child go into the world. But for me, I guess it's more than a parent and child thing. It's more like a best friend. It's like I'm setting my best friend free or something. I don't know. Maybe it's more parent and child. So it's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you're setting something free to go off on its own that's been in your life for years and that you've got used to being there for you. And so you're setting something free and then you have to move on. But I'm not totally moving on because the book will still be in my life because I'll be reading from it and I'll be talking about it for a few months, like promoting it. So, and it will still be a major part of my life because it'll be finished piece then. But I do get attached, and I think that does hold me back a bit from publishing sometimes because it's like I'm attached to my book, right? And so, like, you kind of like when I lost my printer, when I had to sell my printer, I had some grief there because I'm like, oh my god, this printer's been through loads with me, all the heartache and pain, and like when I'm like getting like sending my book off, like it's gonna be published and go out there. It's kind of like I don't know, I feel like a bit more distant from it. Like I'm not so close to it anymore. And so this is like really personal feelings, right? But I think it's important to share this because it's important that we understand ourselves and we reflect on how we're feeling and what we're feeling about and why we're feeling it, right? And and so some people can get attached to objects, right? That's why people hoard things, obviously. And some people do keep things for years and years of their life or forever because it's sentimental reasons we get attached. And so, you don't need to beat yourself up about attachment because some people say it's good to be detached from everything, right? But it's normal human instinct and behavior really to form attachments, to form bonds because we are sociable creatures in general and we like connecting with others. Connecting with others is a healthy thing, right? But if you do spend a lot of time on your own, which I actually do, even though I'm extroverted, you do form more attachments and closeness to things that aren't necessarily a person. Because if you're just surrounded by objects and things and you're not actually seeing people, then you're gonna get more attached to your objects and things, aren't you? If you are empathetic, feeling, emotional person, you're kind of gonna get emotions for the things around you that aren't necessarily even human. It kind of makes sense. Whereas if you're an unempathetic person, you don't really relate to things around you. You're going to be more insular, more withdrawn, and not really have so much attachment to things, I think, unless you're the type of person that's avoiding human interaction and contact on purpose and avoiding getting involved with people. So therefore you do become attached more to objects that are not going to hurt you, for example. There could be that scenario as well, which is a much more unhealthy scenario, right? But obviously we do have to let things go. We do have to grieve. We do have to understand that people don't always stay in our life. And if it's a friend you've had to let go, sometimes you have to let a friend go who was a really close friend to you for years and then they're just not anymore. And that can be really difficult. You have to grieve that. And so in order to be happier, we don't want to bottle these emotions up. We actually want to feel them, lean into them, accept them, cry, get them out, and then we can move on quicker with our lives. Like I am recovering quicker because I had that time where I allow myself to be really upset, you know? And so therefore it's a lot better and healthier for me long term. I'm not saying I'm completely over that all yet, but I'm much better. Like I'm not sat around moping and stuff like that. I'm like really happy that I'm living a good life again and doing things that I enjoy, and I've now got distance from that person because they're not right for me. And so yeah, I just feel better. And so I think it's very important that we self-analyze, we self-reflect, we self-assess, we look within and say, like, how am I actually feeling? What am I really thinking? We don't be ashamed to admit that to ourselves, because obviously some people could come in and they could be heavily critical of what I'm saying about myself. But like I said, happiness is a self-made job. And I'm not here to please other people. I don't value my worth on someone else's opinions of me, right? And so if a person wants to criticize, they can do what they like. But I know that I had good intention. And I know I did a very brave and courageous thing at the weekend. And some people can even do that. Some people can't even open up their heart. I was vulnerable. I let my heart out to someone I didn't really know. And so, yeah, I did put myself in that position, but I'm strong enough to be able to deal with it, to be able to come back from it, and to be able to be okay with my decision that I did that, right? And I just move on, I just take the time. I still journal when I need to. Because it's really good to get your feelings and emotions out in a journal. The more I journal, actually, the better I feel. So it is a really good practice to get a journal and just write your feelings and thoughts down, because it gets them out, and they're not, impacting your body cells and making you feel like rubbish. So journal. So I'm gonna just do a quick summary of things you need to do, because I've done this live stream for over 2 hours now, although the time's flown by for me. So basically, I was talking in the beginning of this video about happiness is an inside job. It's not up to other people to make us happy. It's up to us to make ourselves happy, which is not what we're really taught growing up, because as children, we rely on our adults, our parents, our peers, siblings, maybe teachers, all authority figures to look after us and to like tell us what to do, and to like we think they need to make us happy because we're reliant on them, right? And as children, we kind of are going to be reliant on them. We've got needs, we're more helpless, right? But as adults, we have to understand that happiness is our own responsibility. So we have to take responsibility. And it's good to get help when you need it from therapists, psychologists, life coaches, these type of people. But understand ultimately you're still responsible for your own happiness. So these people can help you to become more happy by working out problems, issues, helping you solve them. Or sometimes if it's counselor, they just listen to you, right? But you have to do the work it takes to make yourself happy. You can't pass the buck and say, hey, this therapist isn't here for me today, so I'm going to feel completely shit about myself because they've got to make me happy. That's not how therapy works. So therapy is there to give you tools and techniques to help yourself, right? Well, that's what they should be doing if they're a good therapist, right? And so we need to understand it's an inside job. We need to understand that we can't rely on other people to make us happy, because if we do that, we're giving our personal power away to someone else. We're giving our emotions away to someone else. Our emotions are dependent on someone else. Therefore, it becomes unhealthy and a codependency type thing. Don't forget to write your happy list. So this is a list of at least 10 things that make you feel happy and good. And so you need to be doing at least one, but usually three every single day. I recommend 3 things on your happy list. Go and do this after this video. Write your happy list out, at least 10 things it needs to be that make you feel happy and feel good. And then do 3 things every day off that list, every day, to improve your mental health, to keep you happy. Because happiness is like a muscle. You need to exercise it. You need to exercise your happy muscle. And then we need to inject positive emotions. So this means listening to positive affirmations, listening to things that make us feel good, make us feel in terms of music, what we watch, movies like comedy, feel good movies. And we need to limit our time or get rid of all the negative stuff like the news, because it's full of murder, death, and rape and stuff like that. We need to get rid of films that don't make us feel good. We need to get rid of things that make us feel negative emotions, basically. So you need to plow yourself and basically bathe yourself in positive, feel good stuff, and limit your time or get rid of as much as possible all the negative stuff. If you've got friends in your life that are not your true friends, they're not supportive of you, they're putting you down or using you, you need to look to leave them and then find better friends. And be on your own is more important than being with someone who's using you, right? And then we need to accept our emotions, and we need to know it's okay to not be okay sometimes, but not to live in that space and not to live in the downward spiral, but to actually make a practice of, like I said, going through your happiness, doing happy stuff. Also, when you're journaling, make sure you do journal and write down 5 things you're grateful for every single day. Because when you're focusing on positive stuff, what you're grateful for, what you have, rather than a lack, it's going to make you feel better. So think about what you have done, what successes you have had, and what you're grateful for every single day. So write it down in a journal, like at the end of the day, 5 successes you've had, wake up in the morning, 5 things you're grateful for, that type of thing. Pop them in a journal or a diary, and go through that and let that sink in and make you feel much happier. And then remember that it's okay to grieve and get negative emotions out, but you don't want to be staying in that cycle of grief. You want to allow yourself to feel it, especially in the first 24 hours something happens, 48 hours. Grieve it, go through that pain, and allow yourself to cry and grieve, right? And know that it's okay to be you. So you don't want to be living someone else's life. You know that your difference is your beauty. There's lots of benefits to being asexual, and being unique is great. We're all unique, but when you can embrace your uniqueness, it makes you happier. Because if you fight against your uniqueness or think there's something wrong with you or broken, then you'll feel down about yourself. So instead, be proud of who you are. Think, I am good in and of my own right. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm different, and that's okay. My difference is my beauty. Why would I want to be a robot? I don't want to be a robot, and I don't want to have societal conditioning control me like it controls many other people, particularly heterosexuals as well, right? Because heterosexuals don't tend to think outside the box. They're very fixated on what they've been taught as kids, like, sex, marriage, kids type of lifestyle, right? And maybe some heterosexuals are not that intersex. And you shouldn't live your life by your parents or your families or your peers, because if you do, you're not being your authentic self. You're not going to make yourself happy because you're doing something to please someone else. Being a people pleaser isn't good. You need to say no to someone, set boundaries with people, don't do things that you're not comfortable with, that you're not happy with. This includes sex, by the way. Don't have sex if you don't want it. And don't do anything sexual you don't want to do, right? And being asexual is fine. If someone doesn't appreciate your asexuality, doesn't accept it, that's their problem. It's not your problem. Your asexuality is non-negotiable. Your asexuality is non-negotiable. And there are no mistakes in your life, just lessons you can learn from, experiences you can have. If you want to find out more about asexuality, get this book, Asexual Perspectives, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Blackwell's. Yeah, or Waterstones even. And also Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook talks a lot about reducing your pain by getting rid of negative stuff in your life. So I would highly recommend you get this book, even if you don't have fibromyalgia. It's an autobiographical self-help handbook, and it tells you how to reduce pain in 25 aspects of your life. And it is really good if you have depression and anxiety, because it helps you by talking about a lot of these things that I actually covered in this video. So yeah, and there you can see it's told in superhero style. There's my superhero. This book is all about being your own superhero in your own life and saving yourself from pain, which is basically what I've been talking about the whole live stream. So anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you to the people who've already given this video a thumbs up, who've been watching for a long time on this live stream. I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I love you dearly. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never ever miss an episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here for you. If you've got any comments, queries, or questions, pop them in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. I'll see you soon in the next video live stream. I appreciate you always, and don't forget to stay ace.